Today I'm trying out a new kind of series thing, which is stuff I read in month, and I'm doing poetry I read in March. I asked you guys on Twitter, do you want to see poetry I read in, manga I read in, videos? Although I prefer doing seasonal wrap-ups for novels, like spring wrap-up, summer wrap-up, that kind of thing. Today we're just talking about poetry, and I know it's really weird to do a video like this at the beginning of March. March is barely halfway through yet, but Sherlockathon goes from March 8th to 27th, so I know that I'm going to be pretty occupied for most of this month, and I probably won't have time to read other things besides what I'm doing for that readathon. So yeah, I'm doing it now, and I read 4 poetry books so far in this month, and they're all kind of like written by women for women. They're about womanhood and all sorts of that kind of stuff, and I think that's just the kind of poetry I prefer reading. But 2 of them are ARCs from Netgalley, which I finally learned how to use, and the other 2 are by the same author, an independent poet who was kind enough to send me copies of her books in exchange for an honest review. And I'm so excited to talk about all of these. The first poetry book I read in March is called Smear, a collection of poems for girls, and it's by a lot of different poets, but it's edited by Greta Bellamessina. The goal of this book is to give perspective and voice to the joys and pains of girlhood and womanhood. It's about mothers, it's about daughters, it's about body positivity, it's about finding your identity as a woman. So it's all women writing this, and it's a kind of diverse, chaotic collection of works by many talented poets. And I did mostly enjoy it, but I have a few thoughts about it. First, I'll talk about what I do like. First of all, I love the message, and I resonate with a lot of what's in there, kind of, because obviously I'm the target audience, of course I do. A poem I really like is called Boys and Bricks, and it's by Brittany Drays. And this poem is kind of basically touching on the problem we have in society with telling boys, maybe directly or indirectly, that they are meant to be emotional brick walls. They are not meant to be weak. They can't express themselves. And then women are taught that it's okay to be weak, that they should let others break them. It's that kind of metaphor with girls and boys growing up and what society tells them and what parents sometimes encourage in them without meaning anything bad by it. And I think that message is something a lot of people should be talking about, a lot more people should be discussing. And I think that's great. Poetry should be used to express stuff that otherwise is not easily expressed. But getting to the stuff I didn't like, sometimes I can't understand what these writers are saying, and it frustrated me. If you think of modern poets like Rupi Kaur or Atticus, both of which I kind of don't like, I'm sorry. If you think about them as the kind of modern artists that would draw like a line on a canvas and then sell it for $5,000, if we're using that analogy, then some of the poets in this collection are the type of artists to paint something beautiful and intricate, and then when you try to understand the meaning behind it, you just end up feeling dumb. So I'm not trying to say that poetry should be simple and immediately easy to understand, but I don't want to feel frustrated and like I'm working hard when I'm reading a poetry book or really any book. So that did take away from my enjoyment a little bit, but I really love the message, and I believe that Smear is worth your time. It will be releasing in April, I think, so give it a try if you're up to think, if you're up to read some truth. Just, it's a very raw collection, and I think that The message is important. It's not something I would want to own personally. I would give this a 2 out of 5 just because of that enjoyment. But again, worth your time, and I love the message, and many poems in here I did really love and I wanted to reread them and think about them. But yeah, I'm just talking about overall. I finished it. So yeah, that's a book I read in March, one of them. Hello, it is me again. Of course it's me. I'm back because last time my camera died. So we're just gonna continue where we picked off. The next book I read in March is Break Your Glass Slippers by Amanda Lovelace. And I did not expect to be reading this book in particular, because most of my enjoyment of poetry comes from indie poets or lesser known poets, and not mainstream ones that you would see in a chapters. And that is because I read 2 of Rupi Kaur's books. I read Milk and Honey and The Sun and Her Flowers, and then I decided I don't like her stuff that much. And then I only read like half of The Truth About Magic by Atticus, and I decided he's my least favorite non-Trisha Paytas poet in the galaxy. And then I just kind of stayed away from the kind of poets that people tell you, this is the modern poet, this is the poetry book they need to read, because other recommendations that I heard and then checked out, I didn't like them. But I saw this book. It's an ARC again. It comes out on March 17th, so pretty soon after this video comes out, and I saw it on Netgalley, and I thought, you know, why not? Why not just check it out and just see for myself? Because Amanda Lovelace is another poet that people talk about a lot, and wow, this ended up being one of my favorite poetry collections, period. And that's weird to me. It's definitely my favorite poetry book that I read this month. So yeah, let's get to what it's actually about. Amanda Lovelace apparently is known for writing very feminist books that appeal to womanly troubles. So it could be about relationships, it could be about mental health, it could be about learning self-love, and this book is similar to that. What I found really unique and interesting about the format of Break Your Glass Slippers is that Amanda Lovelace kind of uses her poetry to tell a story. It's a Cinderella retelling. Of course, it's not fiction because it's real. It applies to so many people. It follows the story of a girl who has fallen in love, but it's really an infatuation with a boy that she believes to be her Prince Charming. And she wants to be with him not just because she loves him as a person, but also because she feels society expects her to be with someone, as many women do. She's confused because she's fallen in love with him, but it's really a toxic relationship, and it's not real, it's not substantial. She is putting his needs and his wants above her own, and basically the poetry book follows her journey from being lonely to falling in love to realizing, oh, I'm worth more than that, and I shouldn't be with someone just for the sake of being with someone. That's the message I got from this book, from this journey, and the art that's in it is also beautiful. I like the art. So, basically the message of this poetry book is something that is so important to me. I wish I had read those poems maybe 2 years ago, and especially one in particular about basically it's okay if people don't like you. That doesn't mean you're not likable. If you don't feel love, that doesn't mean you're unlovable. Some people just don't connect. You shouldn't feel down on yourself. If I had read that like 2 years ago, that would be awesome. But yeah, I think I will be going to Chapters and buying Amanda Lovelace's book. This one, maybe when it comes out, and maybe her other collections, because she has 3 series or something. 1 of them, 2 of them. Anyways, they're completed, and this is a new one. This is the first book in the new one. So if you are a girl looking for a poem collection with a great premise and a great, very creative way of doing things with beautiful art and a beautiful message, and just something that I think every girl needs to hear, especially if you're like me and have struggled with that whole self-worth thing before. You really need to read Amanda Lovelace's work, I think, and just give it a try. And if you're like me and are, you know, suspicious about modern poets, then don't listen to what other people say, just look for yourself. And I give Break Your Glass Slippers a 5 out of 5 stars, just on enjoyment and importance alone. The final 2 books I read this month, as I said earlier, are by the same author. Her name is Nakia Washington, and the books are Since We Were Kids and 8 Months. She was kind enough to send me copies of her books. They just haven't arrived in the mail yet. So I'm reviewing the ebook versions that I read in time for this video, and I already knew I would like them before I started reading both of them completely, because she posts a lot of her poems on Instagram and I started reading them, and that's when I asked to review them, because I really enjoy supporting other indie authors and poets like myself, because there's so much out there. It's really hard to market yourself when you're an independent author, and it's good to actively look for them if you're interested in that kind of thing, which I am, because you'll find so many talented people. So thank you, Nakia, I hope I'm saying your name right, for letting me read your books. And without further ado, I will now review them. I tend to stay away from love-themed poetry collections because, well, I can't relate. I can't relate to most of the content in them, but 8 Months in particular is about more than that. It is also about self-discovery and identity. 8 Months is about a long-term relationship that the author was in, and it sounds like it was a little bit toxic, and it's just about her getting over that and moving past it and discovering self-love in herself and also with God. And then Since We Were Kids is about a childhood friend turned boyfriend that she was talking about, and basically their complicated relationship with each other. So that's what both of the books are about, and here's what I got out of them. I really like Nakia's style of poetry. Here's one poem from 8 Months. I can see God in the way the clouds wrap around the earth, in the way the flowers die and are resurrected by the invisible light of the sun, in the shriek of my mother's laughter, in the happiness of my ex's eyes, in the poems that fold my lips, in the way he brought you back to me, in the death that becomes shining stars, in the way you left me and yet here I stand. God is an artist, a poet, an illustrator, and all, authoring my life like my favorite children's book. I like that style. I really like the way it weaves around the words. Since We Were Kids is shorter and kind of is more tightly focused, 8 Months goes around, and I think that self-discovery and depression and that kind of thing is something I and a lot of people can easily connect to. 8 Months to me was more enjoyable and relatable, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And Since We Were Kids, since it has more subject matter that I can't relate to, I rated it 3 out of 5, but I'm still excited to read both books in the mail, to own them, and I'm looking forward to what the author does next. I hope to do more videos like this with manga, maybe next month or 2 months from now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.